Chapter 1180. However, what surprised him even more was that Xinyu also walked out of the cave, smiled awkwardly at him, and curiously looked at Hong Tailong. Then, he flew over with the underworld saintess. Seeing that Xinyu kept his promise, Yu Qianzhou was relieved, but he was a little puzzled as to why the two of them were together. He couldn't help but ask, "Why are you two together?" Xinyu said embarrassedly, "I came here a few days in advance to wait for you. Who knew that I would also meet Miss Xian here, so we waited for you here together. Taishu Xian is also waiting for me? Could it be that her ability to predict the future had reached such a level? Or is it a coincidence?" Just as Yu Qianzhou showed some doubts on his face, Taishu Xian, whose face was covered with a black veil, suddenly sighed faintly and asked, "You really came here? In that case, Bai Qi didn't escape the calamity after all." Hong Tailong, who was already confused, was even more puzzled. The two of them came here in the blink of an eye. How did she know that Bai Qi had encountered a calamity? Yu Qianzhou didn't dare to underestimate her. He had a deeper understanding of this woman's divine foresight. However, because he had promised Bai Qi not to leak the news that he was dead, a confused look appeared on his face as he asked, "What do you mean Bai Qi didn't escape the calamity? What happened to Bai Qi?" Hong Tailong immediately turned his head and rolled his eyes. Taishu Xian looked deeply at Yu Qianzhou and shook his head slightly. "Bai Qi and I were friends, and I couldn't bear to see him suffer a tragedy. I originally wanted him to use you to defy the heavens and change his fate. I also thought that he understood. Now it seems that the two of you didn't get along after all. It's really hard to defy the heavens' will." Yu Qianzhou's eyes flickered. He wanted to say something but hesitated for a while. In the end, he still said with a blank look, "What do you mean? Why don't I understand?" Taishu Xian saw that he was deliberately acting dumb, so he didn't linger on this topic. He quietly turned around and said, "I have been waiting for you here for a long time. Since you want to go inside the celestial boundary, why don't we go together?" "What? The celestial barrier of the mausoleum of the gods?" Hong Tailong looked around in shock, while Yu Qianzhou glanced at Xinyu meaningfully, as if he was asking, "Did you say that?" Feeling guilty, Jiu Yu turned around and flashed into the river. He transformed into a giant clam and opened his shell to wait for the three of them to come in. Taishu Xian was the first to enter in a flash, followed by Yu Qianzhou. Hong Tailong still had a shocked expression on his face as he glanced left and right before following behind them. The huge clamshell closed up, and it quickly swam upstream in the Netherworld River. When the few of them came out of the clamshell again, they had already arrived at the cliff within the boundary of all heavens. Hong Tailong stared at the huge moon with his mouth agape. Taishu Xian seemed a little excited to return to this place. He didn't greet the crowd and immediately flew in the direction of his home. Yu Qianzhou took out a flying shuttle and let Hong Tailong drive it. He brought along Jiu Yu and caught up with Taishu Xian in the blink of an eye. They carried her and quickly disappeared into the distance. When they arrived at the small courtyard on the monster-like mountain, Taishu Xian couldn't wait any longer and flashed down. White-haired Grandma Yen walked out of the house and saw her. She immediately called out with a trembling voice, "Little Xian." Taishu Xian quickly walked over and knelt down on the spot. She hugged Grandma Yan's leg and cried, "Grandma, Xian is back." After Grandma Yan helped her up and checked on her, the two of them hugged each other and cried. As they cried, they asked each other something and completely ignored the three people who walked in after them. After a long while, the two women who looked like a grandparent and granddaughter finally stopped crying. When Grandma Yen saw Yu Qianzhou, she wiped her tears and let go of Taishu Xian. She walked to him and bowed, "Yu Qianzhou. This old woman thanks you." She was thanking him for bringing back Taishu Xian who had disappeared for so many years. "You can't do that." Yu Qianzhou hurriedly held her. Grandma Yen didn't stand on ceremony. She pulled his hand and led him into the house. She then waved at the other two people and said, "Come in, come in, come in, everyone come in." "Grandma Yen, you don't have to be so polite." Yu Qianzhou persuaded her and said seriously, "I still have something to do, so I won't disturb you this time. I'll visit Grandma next time. He suddenly thought of something and asked respectfully, by the way. Grandma, have you heard any news about my master recently? Hong Tailong's ears pricked up. He looked at Yu Qianqiu with a stunned expression and pondered in his heart. Could this guy's master be in the mausoleum of the god of sin? Your master? Grandma Yen was also stunned. Then, she came to a sudden realization and said, You're asking about that green-robed madman, right? Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched. The so-called green-robed madman shouldn't be anyone else. He then coughed dryly and said, From what Grandma said, you seem to have news about my master. Grandma Yen also felt that her choice of words was a little inappropriate, but she still frowned and nodded with a solemn expression. She said, I do know, but you must not let the others here know that he is your master. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will bring you trouble. Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched again. He guessed that the old man had done something that angered the heavens and the people again. So, he asked weakly, Grandma, can you explain it clearly? What exactly happened? Sigh. Grandma Yen sighed and shook her head. She said, Your master killed old man Meng. That's not all. He provoked the other tomb guards one after another. As a result, many of them were angered by him. So, more than 100 of them joined forces and finally beat him up until he was seriously injured. Who knew that after he escaped into the boundary of heavens to recuperate, he would not stop? After he came out, he killed 60 to 70 minor god-level cultivators in a row. Dozens of them were seriously injured and luckily escaped with their lives. In the end, a tomb guard with the cultivation of an early-stage great god was alarmed. He and your master fought fiercely for a day and a night. In the end, the two of them were evenly matched. Both of them were seriously injured and had to retreat. Your master has not come out to cause trouble for a long time. He has been recuperating in the boundary of heavens. Although everyone can see him, they can't break into the boundary of heavens. So, they can't do anything to him. Yu Qianqiu was speechless for a while. He realized that the old man was getting more and more reckless. He dared to challenge a group of god-level experts alone. Was it fun to be seriously injured for no reason? It was simply unreasonable. The others were also speechless. After the shock, Taishu Xian's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. Xinyu seemed to have heard of this before. He was speechless. Hong Tailong looked at Yu Qianqiu as if he was looking at a monster. Never in his dreams would he have thought that Yu Qianqiu had such an awesome master. Grandma Yen paused for a while and smiled bitterly. Now, the people in the cemetery of the God of Tombs are in a state of panic because of your master. No one knows when he will come out to cause trouble again. Everyone is spreading the news, hoping to unite to deal with your master. Sigh. Back then, if it wasn't for last Xian who divined for me and told me not to get involved in the matters outside, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to escape from your master's hands. I just don't understand. What is your master trying to do? Everyone here is a group of people who stand aloof from worldly affairs. Why would he want to disturb the peace here? No one is provoking him. That, he. Yu Qianqiu blushed with shame. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, There's something wrong with the old man's head. Don't lower yourself to his level. Grandma Yen immediately said angrily, Who wants to lower themselves to his level? We really don't want to lower ourselves to his level, and we can't wait to stay away from him. But he insisted on coming to our door, and we can't leave the cemetery of the God of Tombs. What do you want us to do? Yu Qianqiu also smiled bitterly. The old man was still resolutely striving for a higher and stronger goal. It seemed that he had never wavered in that thought. Yu Qianqiu didn't know what to say. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward, Taishu Xian immediately came forward to resolve it. Grandma. I want to pay my respects to Father and Grandfather Moon God. Grandma Yen glanced at her and understood what she was thinking. She didn't linger on this topic anymore. She shook her head and walked out with the help of Taishu Xian. Ahem. Since they are elders, I should pay my respects. Yu Qianqiu followed out with some guilt. Then, he cursed in his heart. Damn it. I didn't do the wicked things that the old man did. Why should I feel guilty? Hong Tailong and Shen Yu looked at each other and followed out. In front of the tombs of Tai Shu Zheng and the moon god, Tai Shu Xian knelt down and kowtowed sincerely. He was even muttering something. Yu Qianqiu bowed repeatedly to the tombstones. Shen Yu followed suit. Hong Tailong crossed his arms and followed suit. Tai Shu Zheng didn't know who it was. When he saw the tomb of the moon god, he muttered, "So the moon god is buried here too." Grandma Yen saw that he was being disrespectful and naturally couldn't stand it. But when she realized that she couldn't see through his cultivation, she couldn't help but mock. "Do you know my husband?" Huh? Hong Tailong turned around and was stunned. After he reacted, he said disapprovingly, "The moon god. I heard of him when I was in the divine realm." "You are?" Huh? Grandma Yen was stunned. She glanced at them and asked in confusion, "You are also from the divine realm? Why haven't I seen you before? May I know your name?" She mistakenly thought that Hong Tailong was a tomb guard in the divine tomb cemetery. "It's not strange that you haven't seen me before." Hong Tailong revealed a normal expression and said, "I, Hong Tailong, am a nobody in the dragon clan. I have never made a name for myself in the divine realm. It's normal that we haven't seen each other." You are from the dragon clan?" Grandma Yen looked at him in surprise, as if she couldn't believe it. Just as she was about to ask again, she saw Hong Tailong casually walking to the front of the huge grave mound. He caressed the dark red crystals that formed the grave mound and said, "It is said that as long as the corpse of the person buried in the blood jade red crystals is intact, his cultivation and corpse can be maintained. At the same time, the blood jade red crystals can absorb the essence of the moon and condense the dead soul. When the time is right, the dead can be resurrected. This is also the reason why people in the divine realm fight to be buried in the divine tomb cemetery. I wonder if it's true." Grandma Yen was already annoyed by his rude behavior. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and quickly pulled Hong Tailong away to stop him from carelessly touching the grave mound. Then, he pulled Shen Yu along and the three of them bid farewell to Grandma Yen. Grandma Yen nodded unhappily. She didn't say any polite words and let the three of them leave. Chapter 1181. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Hong Tailong, who was on the rapidly flying shuttle, was also somewhat unhappy. He could also tell that Grandma Yen wasn't very fond of him. He coldly snorted at Yu Qianqiu, "Why are you afraid of her? She's no match for me with her cultivation." "You think you're right?" Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes, "Respect the dead. If you don't put her in your eyes, she didn't offend you. Why did you have to touch her grave? No one would be happy. Do I, a dragon, have to kneel and kowtow to her family's dead?" Hong Tailong waved his hand disdainfully and continued to steer his flying shuttle. Suddenly, he turned around and sneered, "I understand. You're afraid that you'll be implicated by your master's troubles. You're afraid that she'll be unhappy and expose your identity, right? Don't talk about useless things." Yu Qianqiu snorted. He crossed his arms and rubbed his chin, thinking about something. The expression on his face was somewhat strange. Suddenly, he looked at Hong Tailong with a strange gaze and said, "Let me ask you, you said that as long as the corpses of the dead are intact, they can maintain their cultivation. Is that true?" "I don't know if it's true, but that's what I've heard in the divine realm. However, I've never heard of anyone being resurrected, so I'm not sure. Why are you interested in this? Do you also want to be buried in?" Hong Tailong's voice paused, and his body suddenly trembled. He turned around and exclaimed in shock, "Could it be that you want to use the Xian Ming soul refining technique too?" He glanced at Shen Yu and swallowed his words. He still didn't know how close this Shen Yu fellow was to Yu Qianqiu, and there were some things that he couldn't let him know. However, Yu Qianqiu nodded thoughtfully and said, "If his cultivation really hasn't dissipated. I wonder if it's been too long since he died." Is there any use in using the Xianming soul refining technique? Hong Tailong's eyes flickered as he swept his gaze across his surroundings. He was a little excited as he chuckled. Do you want to give it a try? He seemed to be searching for a target. Shen Yu looked at the two of them in confusion. He didn't know what they were talking about, but his instincts told him that they were up to no good. At that moment, the flying shuttle arrived above the tomb that old man Meng had been guarding. The ground was full of potholes, as if an interstellar war had taken place. However, the dark red crystal tomb was still there. Hong Tailong winked at Yu Qianzhou and gestured at the grave below. Yu Qianzhou immediately had a look of disdain on his face. Looking at this old fellow's character, he must have done a lot of good things with Yi Tiankong back then. I'm not in the mood for this right now. Let's go to the edge of the all-celestial boundary and see how my master is doing, said Yu Qianzhou as he pointed forward. All right. We'll talk about it when we get back. Hong Tailong chuckled as if he was very interested in being a thief. He forgot about the dignity of the dragon race and flew away on the flying shuttle. The flying shuttle soon arrived at the edge of the all-celestial boundary. Who knew that just as it approached, someone would shout, "Who is it?" Suddenly, 3 people descended from the sky, forming a triangle around the flying shuttle. Hong Tailong's gaze swept over the 3 people, and his pupils shrank slightly. He discovered that he could not see through the cultivation of these 3 people. They were clearly higher than him. Yu Qianzhou knew that they had encountered an expert when he saw Hong Tailong's expression. He quickly cupped his fists at the 3 and said with a smile, "We heard that someone is doing evil here, so we came here to see which madman has the guts to do so." The 3 of them turned a deaf ear to his words. Their gazes were fixed on Hong Tailong as they looked at each other in disbelief. After a long while, one of them asked in bewilderment, "You're from the dragon race?" The 3 of them had a higher cultivation than Hong Tailong, so they could see through Hong Tailong's true form. "Can't I?" Hong Tailong shouted with an imposing manner, "I heard that someone is doing evil here. I came here to investigate. Could it be that you are trying to stop me?" "So it's the dragon race's emissary." The 3 of them mistook Hong Tailong as an emissary sent by the dragon race. They bowed and greeted him. The person who answered earlier even explained to Hong Tailong respectfully, "There is indeed a madman doing evil here. He is inside the all-celestial boundary ahead. Emissary, please report back to Great Coiling Dragon God as soon as possible and eliminate this person. Lead me there." Hong Tailong pointed at Hong Tailong and put on airs. The 3 of them immediately led the way. Yu Qianzhou looked at Hong Tailong with a disgusted expression. He was even more certain that this old fellow must have done many bad things in the past. After arriving at their destination, the group stood at the edge of the transverse cliff. The person who answered earlier waved his hand and pointed into the darkness ahead. "Emissary, please look. That person is right there." Yu Qianzhou and the others looked in the direction he pointed. In the void not too far away, Bai Changchun was quietly floating there in his green robe. His eyes were closed and his brows were drooping. He was motionless, like a statue. Golden arcs of light constantly flickered around his body. They either flew out of his body in complicated trajectories or entered his body in an ethereal manner. The golden arcs of light were constantly moving in and out of his body. No one knew what they were doing. Hong Tailong glanced at Yu Qianzhou. From his expression, he confirmed that it was his master. He suddenly shouted, "Hey! Who is doing evil here? Quickly report your name." "It's useless." The person who guided them shook his head and explained, "The all-celestial boundary isolates everything. He can't hear our voices at all. We also don't know when he will wake up, and we can't go over either." Sigh. This person is very strange. I don't know what method he used to hide in the all-celestial boundary. I'm afraid Emissary Dragon will have to report back to Great Coiling Dragon God before he can make a decision. We can't contact your master. What should we do? Hong Tailong secretly transmitted his voice. Yu Qianzhou was also helpless. He said in the dark, "Forget it. Let's focus on our own matters first." Hong Tailong then said to the other three with a stern expression, "I know what to do. I will go back and report back now." The three quickly offered to send him off, but Hong Tailong rejected them. He drove the flying shuttle again and left with Yu Qianzhou and Shen Yu. After watching them leave, one of them expressed doubt. "Why do I feel that this emissary dragon is a little strange? He actually brought two people with such shallow cultivation with him, and he even drove the flying shuttle himself. Do you think he might be an imposter?" Another person shook his head and said, "Why do you care so much? There's no doubt that he's a dragon. It's even more impossible for him to be an imposter. If he wasn't here on imperial orders, he wouldn't have been able to break through the all-celestial boundary. Besides, have you ever heard of a dragon daring to impersonate great coiling dragon god's envoy?" As they were discussing, Hong Tailong, who had flown far away, suddenly turned around on the flying shuttle. He put his hands on Yu Qianzhou's shoulders and said with a trembling voice, "If the matter of me impersonating great coiling dragon god's envoy gets out, you have to help me explain to great coiling dragon god. I'm only impersonating him so that you can meet your master." "All right. I know." Yu Qianzhou pushed his hands away and said nonchalantly, "What's there to be afraid of? You didn't lie. You're great coiling dragon god's envoy. Don't think too much. Stop there and we'll do our own things." Shen Yu had been listening to the conversation between the two in bewilderment. Why did it involve great coiling dragon god again? He felt that things were getting out of hand. He didn't know if following these two fellows was a blessing or a curse. Hong Tailong sighed and turned around. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid my time as an envoy has long expired." Not long after, the three of them returned to the sky above the lonely tomb. Hong Tailong looked around and made sure that there was no one around. He quickly put away the flying shuttle and the three of them landed in front of the tombstone. There were words on the tombstone. "Honghua Star Monarch. I've heard of this person. He's a member of the Light Ancient God clan. I think he's a late-stage great god. However, he fell when the demon god wreaked havoc in the divine realm. I didn't expect him to be buried here." Hong Tailong nodded as he looked at the tombstone. "Haha. His surname is Hong, just like yours." Yu Qianzhou teased. Hong Tailong was about to retort when he saw Yu Qianzhou lightly stomp his feet. The three of them immediately sank into the ground. Then, the ground above them closed up again, blocking the bright moonlight. Hong Tailong couldn't help but shake his head. This guy really knew the earth elemental art. Meanwhile, Yu Qianzhou used the earth elemental art to sense the depth of the tomb. After diving down to a depth of 10 meters, he suddenly pointed with his finger. The soil in front of him parted, and a large hole appeared on the wall made of blood jade and red crystals. Immediately, a faint red light could be seen moving gently in front of him. Yu Qianzhou looked at it warily. He stepped aside to make way and said, "There's no danger in there, right?" Hong Tailong was speechless. He knew that this guy meant for him to go in and check first. He strode in and walked around. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, he shouted, "Come in. It's fine." Yu Qianzhou then swaggered in, while Shen Yu followed behind him in fear. He realized that every time he followed Yu Qianzhou had to do some unimaginable and scary things. The space inside the tomb was not small, and the lighting was good. The entire tomb's walls and floor were made of blood jade red crystals. Strands of red light shone down from the blood jade red crystals on the ceiling. They formed a fan shape and focused on a corpse in the center. It was a man's corpse, and he was also lying on a long bed made of blood jade red crystals. Yu Qianzhou and Shen Yu were still looking around, but Hong Tailong was already at the side of the long bed, trying to touch the corpse on it. Shen Yu didn't dare to move. Yu Qianzhou walked over to take a look. The man's corpse had a goat-like beard and a serene expression. It was as if he was sleeping, and he didn't look like a dead person at all. Yu Qianzhou couldn't help but curiously poke his head over and asked, "What are you doing?" Hong Tailong pinched open the man's mouth and peeked inside. He then opened the eyelids to take a look. Then, he clapped his hands and said with a curious expression, the corpse is actually soft. There's a piercing wound in his heart, but I can see that the original wound was even bigger. It's obviously healing at an extremely slow speed. It seems that the legend about the mausoleum of the god of sin is true. There might really be a possibility of resurrection. If you don't believe me, come and touch it. He pointed at the corpse on the long bed to Yu Qianqiu. Chapter 1182. Motherf *****. I'm not as perverted as you. I've never had the hobby of touching corpses. Moreover, it's a corpse that has been dead for God knows how many years. How could you do it? Yu Qianqiu spat in disgust. He had seen enough of the corpse's disgusting actions. However, he still couldn't help but poke it a few times to see if it was real or fake. Finding that it really was soft, he couldn't help but pinch the corpse's arm. He coughed and pulled his hand back. I'm more concerned about how his cultivation base is preserved. The two stood in front of the corpse that had been dead for God knows how many years and chatted. They even touched each other. Jiu Yu subconsciously looked around and felt extremely horrified. Can you not always say one thing but mean another? Hong Tai-long spat back. He then went straight to the point. Without giving Jiu Yu a chance to refute, he said, his cultivation seems to have been damaged. I heard that Honghua Star Lord was a late-stage great god back then. Now, he's only a mid-stage great god. Try and see if you can use it. What were these two guys trying to do? Jiu Yu stared at the two people who had their backs to him surrounding the corpse. Middle-stage great god. It's enough, it's enough. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the entire corpse with a beaming smile on his face. Then, he patted Hong Tai-long's chest with the back of his hand, hinting him to step aside. Then, he circled around the long couch twice. No one knew what he was thinking, but he shook his head again and again. Suddenly, he waved his hand and a seven-colored flame enveloped the entire corpse. Then, he closed his eyes and remained motionless. It was Shen Yu's first time seeing the seven-colored flame, and he was shocked. The flame that covered the corpse slowly melted under his claws until it became a ball floating in the air. There was a layer of grayish-white human-shaped ashes on the long bed of blood jade and red crystals, which was obviously left behind after the corpse was cremated. Yu Qianqiu suddenly opened his eyes. There were two leaping flames in his eyes. He flipped his 5 claws that were spewing out 7-colored flames. The already shrunken fireball was held in his palm, and it kept shrinking. When all the 7-colored flames had entered his palm, a sparkling and translucent purple bead was quietly lying on his palm. There was a faint red light inside the purple bead. So, the bead for a god-level cultivation base is purple. Yu Qianqiu looked at the bead in his palm and said excitedly. Success? Hong Tai-long flashed over to take a look. Shen Yu still did not understand what they were doing. You'll know once you try. Yu Qianqiu threw the bead in his hand and a 7-colored flame sprayed out from his palm. The purple bead spun in the 7-colored flame and quickly absorbed the flame. Gradually, a 3-meter-tall 7-colored flame man appeared. It looked like it was materializing. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. Yu Qianqiu retracted the flame in his palm and exclaimed as he looked into the sky, "Damn it! He absorbed almost half of the Samadhi true fire in my body." The Samadhi true fire that can cover a radius of 500 meters was condensed into this. Hong Tai-long and Shen Yu stared dumbfoundedly at the 3-meter-tall mighty fire man in the air. He was wearing a 7-colored fire armor and looked extremely lifelike. His pair of fiery golden eyes stared straight ahead without any emotion. The two of them could feel the terrifying power contained in this fire overlord's body. Wow! I, Hong Tai-long, have my eyes opened. Hong Tai-long's eyes lit up as he shook his head and exclaimed, a flame man with Samadhi true fire as a body and a mid-stage god-level cultivation base. This thing is really scary. With a thought from Yu Qianqiu, the flame man teleported down and waved his palm like a knife across the long bed made of blood jade and red crystal. It was easily cut in half like a knife cutting through tofu. There wasn't even a sound. The seven-colored flame man suddenly raised his head and looked at Hong Tai Long. Hong Tai Long was shocked and immediately felt something was wrong. He flashed behind Yu Qianzhou and shouted angrily, "You want to use me as an experiment? I'm warning you, don't make such a joke. You'll die." Yu Qianzhou chuckled. He did have such an idea, but since he had been seen through, it would hurt his feelings to scare him again. He raised his hand and opened his claw. The seven-colored flame man immediately dispersed into Samadhi true fire and was absorbed into Yu Qianzhou's body. Finally, the purple bead was in his hand. He looked at it admiringly before putting it away. Hong Tai Long walked out from behind him with lingering fear and asked, "What's this thing called?" "The fire of water, fire, metal, wood, and earth. It should be called Fire Soul Mystic Weapon." Yu Qianzhou smiled proudly. With such a treasure to protect him, he wouldn't have to fear anything in the three realms. Hong Tai Long clicked his tongue enviously and said, "That means there's still Water Soul Mystic Weapon, Gold Soul Mystic Weapon, Wood Soul Mystic Weapon, and Earth Soul Mystic Weapon? Theoretically, it should be like this. Snow Emperor's one is called Ice Soul Mystic Weapon." Yu Qianzhou nodded and said with pity, "If I'm able to devour the other four great spirits, then coupled with the myriad of tombs within this mausoleum, I'll be able to refine the five-element dark weapons. Who in the three dimensions would be able to stop me then?" Jiu Yu, who was at the side, was shocked. He understood everything now. He had seen the ice soul mystic ice of the great snowy mountain. Obviously, Yu Qianzhou had obtained the secret method to refine mystic weapons from Snow Emperor. What shocked him the most was that Yu Qianzhou had set his sights on the 10 million divine tombs in the mausoleum of the god of sin. If he succeeded, wouldn't he have to refine 10 million divine-level dark weapons? Hee. Not to mention the three realms, with so many divine-grade profound weapons, even in the god realm, they would be able to sweep through a region. Hong Tai Long rubbed his hands excitedly and said, "Didn't your master kill quite a few tomb guardians? You probably don't know that we'll find a few good tombs in other places and empty them. Back then, our coiling dragon ancestor killed the wind god of the 12 ancient gods. The body of the wind god is also buried here. That's a terrifying expert with the cultivation of a late-stage ancient god. Don't you want to refine him into a mystic weapon?" That wretched smile on his face was filled with the feeling of enticing people to commit a crime. It was obvious that he was very interested in stealing. No wonder he was in cahoots with the myriad swords demon monarch, Yi Tiankong. One of the 12 ancient gods, late-stage ancient god, Yu Qianzhou and Shen Yu both cried out in surprise. The former's eyes were even brighter. He had heard of the wind god's great name before. That was one of the top 12 experts since the creation of the world. If he could refine him into a mystic weapon, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the divine realm. Yu Qianzhou swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His expression suddenly froze and he asked suspiciously, "Hong Tai Long, the tomb of a figure like the wind god must be guarded by an expert. I wonder what their cultivation is like." The smile on Hong Tai Long's face froze and he said awkwardly, "I heard that the people guarding the tomb of the wind god are his left and right envoys. They are called Tian Feng and Di Feng. Their cultivation had reached early stage ancient god a long time ago. I wonder what level their cultivation is now, hee. What are you laughing at?" Yu Qianzhou snorted and asked, "Digging the tomb of the wind god is no problem. But who can handle the two ancient god experts? You or me? Damn it. Even if you want to die, this is not the way to do it." Even Jiu Yu couldn't help but roll his eyes at Hong Tai Long, hee. "Even if we can't dig the tomb of the wind god, we can still dig the tomb of others." Hong Tai Long didn't give up and said, "Now that you have a mid-stage great god fire soul mystic weapon, you should be able to handle ordinary mid-stage great god tomb guards. Even if you can't, you should be able to stall them. It's enough for you to dig the tomb. Think about it, for a tomb guard of a mid-stage great god expert, the tomb master's cultivation is probably almost at the ancient god level. You can get a few more ancient god-level mystic weapons and use them to deal with Tian Feng and Di Feng. Won't you be able to dig the tomb of the wind god in the end?" As he spoke, he even made a move to take drastic measures. Towards this immoral idea, Shin Yu lowered his head and looked at the ground without any expression. Yu Qianqiu, on the other hand, nodded in agreement. That makes sense. But I'm afraid it's not possible now. Hong Tai Long said unwillingly. Why? It's very simple. First, the tomb guards here have already been alerted by my master. I'm afraid that they have already linked up. If we're not careful, we might run into their hands. Sigh. My master messing around is equivalent to ruining our plans. Second, although this fire soul mystic weapon is powerful, it needs enough fire to boost its power. The true Samadhi fire stored in my body can only be used to scare people. It might be fine against ordinary experts, but it definitely can't support him to fight with a real expert. Otherwise, once he is defeated, he won't be able to revive in time. At that time, we'll be in trouble. Jiu Yu and I saw this with our own eyes at the Great Snowy Mountain. Third, with the terrain here, if we really want to do something, only the Earth Soul Mystic Weapon can unleash its full power. If I can devour the Earth Spirit, it'll be much safer. Earth Spirit? Hong Tai Long scratched his head and said gloomily, where are we going to find the Earth Spirit at this time? Hee hee. Yu Qianqiu laughed sinisterly and said, unfortunately, I've heard Demon King 3 Knights say that he has an Earth Spirit under him. If we want to find an Earth Spirit, I'm afraid we'll have to find trouble with Demon King 3 Knights. Also, I've long wanted to make a move on Jean Tai's Gold Spirit, but I haven't had the chance. Now is the time to do it together. Good. Hong Tai Long clapped his hands and praised, I'm also going to find Jean Tai to settle the score. Let's go and find him now. Yu Qianqiu nodded and turned to look at Jiu Yu with a smile. Jiu Yu. This celestial barrier is very deceitful. I'm embarrassed to trouble you to come and fetch us all the time. Why don't you come with us? That way, it'll be convenient for everyone. What do you think? Jiu Yu was speechless. He wanted to refuse, but was there any use in refusing? If you don't say anything, I'll take it as you agree. Yu Qianqiu directly made the decision for him. With a wave of his hand, the three of them instantly disappeared from the tomb. After the three of them returned to the underground base of the Divine Ruin Realm, Yu Qianqiu arranged for Jiu Yu to stay in a karst cave deep in the base. Wei Chuanxiu, Yun Peng, and Bai Suzhen were all cultivating there. There was also underground water for Jiu Yu, the muscle spirit, to take a bath. At the same time, Wei Chuanxiu and Yun Peng received a hint from Yu Qianqiu that Jiu Yu was very important to him and that nothing should happen to him. In fact, he was under house arrest. Chapter 1183. Inside the underground karst cave, Shin Yu, who was under house arrest, was not afraid at all. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. For him, being able to find a secluded place to cultivate in peace was better than anything else. He really didn't want to follow Yu Qianqiu and take risks. In his memory, as long as he followed Yu Qianqiu, there was never a time when he wasn't on tenterhooks. Everything he did was unimaginable and frightening. The underground karst cave was full of twists and turns, and the space was quite large. Yu Qianqiu had said that as long as he didn't leave this place, no one would restrict his freedom. Thus, he turned into the depths of a winding passageway and settled down. He had also thought it through. Since he had nowhere to reason with, he might as well obediently serve Yu Qianqiu. It was nothing more than going in and out of the boundary of heavens a few more times. As long as he did his part, based on his understanding of Yu Qianqiu after being in contact with him for so long, Yu Qianqiu would not do anything to him. Hong Tai Long walked around the huge underground karst cave with his hands clasped behind his back. He had no interest in Yu Qianqiu's trivial matters. Yu Qianqiu was negotiating with Wei Chuanxiu and Yun Peng when his gaze suddenly stopped on the stone wall of the karst cave opposite the underground river. A beautiful woman in fluttering white clothes was looking at him gently with a faint smile. Cough cough. That's it. Yu Qianqiu said and directly flashed to the opposite entrance of the cave. Bai Suzhen gently held his hand. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Then, they turned around and entered the cave together. Wei Chuanxiu and Yun Peng looked at each other. The former blew his beard and glared at him. What a guy who only cares about the opposite sex. Inside the cave where Bai Suzhen cultivated, there was a clean long couch. Yu Qianqiu was lying comfortably on it with his head resting on the thigh of a beauty. His eyes were wide open as he looked at Bai Suzhen, who was stroking his face and smiling at him. He asked, "Why did you stop cultivating? Did we disturb you?" Bai Suzhen shook her head and said with a smile, "I couldn't hear your voices even after setting up a soundproof enchantment. I just wanted to take a walk after I finished cultivating and saw you." "Oh. So that was how it was. By the way, there's something I want to tell you." Yu Qianqiu lay on her lap and told her about what had happened recently, especially about how all the cultivators in the human world had been wiped out. Then, he stared at the expression on Bai Suzhen's face without blinking. Bai Suzhen frowned, then nodded slightly and said, "I understand what you mean. When you think it's appropriate, let's go back to my home and move my Snow Fox clan to a safe place." Yu Qianqiu didn't know what to say to this considerate confidant. He raised his hand and grabbed the hand that was caressing his face. A naughty smile suddenly appeared on his face as he said, "I think it's time for our relationship to take another step forward." "Take another step forward?" Bai Suzhen was startled. For a moment, she didn't know what he meant. Yu Qianqiu's finger had already gently touched the bulge of her heart. Then, he pressed his entire palm on it. Bai Suzhen immediately understood what he meant. A blush appeared on her face, and a hint of shyness flashed through her eyes. Bending her soft waist, she lowered her head and took the initiative to press her lips against Yu Qianqiu's. The warmth of the other party's body and the attractive aura on their lips immediately ignited the lust in their hearts. Seeing that she agreed, Yu Qianqiu's beastly nature instantly erupted. He suddenly flipped over and placed Bai Suzhen on the bed. Bai Suzhen let out a moan. Their mouths couldn't be separated. Their tongues tangled together, and his hands were groping all over Bai Suzhen's body. Just as he pulled open Bai Suzhen's clothes, revealing her snow-white skin, his hand touched her soft and smooth skin. Before he could reach in, he suddenly heard Hong Tailong's loud voice coming from outside, "Yu Qianqiu. Where did you go?" This voice was so loud that even the people outside the base could hear it. F***CK. Yu Qianqiu suddenly raised his head and looked at the beautiful woman who was panting under him. He threw caution to the wind and said, F***CK. Let's not care about him. Let's get down to business first. Just as he laid down again, Bai Suzhen suddenly couldn't help but burst out laughing. She reached out her hand to support his body and said, "You go do what you need to do first. I can't relax with someone outside. Next time, come and find me. We'll find a quiet place." What she meant was that this time, there was no atmosphere. The swan meat that he could finally taste after waiting for such a long time was scared away by someone. Yu Qianqiu instantly jumped up with a face full of grief and indignation. He quickly walked out, and his angry roar came from outside, "Hong Tailong. You uncultured thing. I was doing something very important, but I was interrupted by a beast like you." Bai Suzhen sat up on the bed and tidied up her messy clothes. When she heard Yu Qianqiu yelling at someone outside, she couldn't help but giggle. She tidied up her hair and walked out. Hong Tailong, who had been scolded to the point that his head was spinning, finally waited for Yu Qianqiu to take a breather. He said with a stunned expression, "What did I interrupt you for?" Just as he finished speaking, his gaze paused on the hole in the stone wall in front of him. He saw a beautiful woman in white standing there and nodding at him as a greeting. That was the place where Yu Qianqiu came out from. Wei Chuanxiu, Yun Peng, and Xin Yu stuck their heads out from 3 different directions and looked in their direction. Hong Tailong instantly realized that he had ruined their plan. He slapped his forehead and said, "So you're just sharpening your axe to cut firewood. I was wrong. I was wrong. You continue with your important business. I'll leave. I promise I won't disturb you anymore." He waved his hand repeatedly to signal Yu Qianqiu to go back, then turned around and left. F***CKU. Yu Qianzhou cursed loudly. He wanted nothing more than to go over and give him 2 kicks. The atmosphere was already ruined. What was the use of you leaving? Hong Tailong pretended not to hear anything. He buried his head in a hole and crawled into it. He faced the wall and drew circles with his index finger. He kept mumbling, I was wrong. Right at this moment, Zhang Peng quickly dashed into the karst cave from the outside. He also heard Hong Tailong shout and knew that his master had returned. It just so happened that he had something to talk to him about. Who knew that he would see his master so angry the moment he arrived? He stood at the entrance of the cave, not knowing what to do or what was going on. Yu Qianzhou glanced at Zhang Peng. He knew that he wouldn't come here for no reason. Therefore, he suppressed his anger and temporarily put Hong Tailong's matter aside. He walked over and asked, What's the matter? Zhang Peng was stunned. He immediately remembered why he was looking for his master. He quickly replied, Wen Rui wanted to look for you a few times, but unfortunately, he never met you. Wen Rui? Yu Qianzhou paused and frowned. Wen Rui from the Wen Lanfeng clan? Yes. Zhang Peng nodded. Yu Qianzhou asked curiously, Why is he looking for me? Let's go. Let's go take a look. The master and disciple flew out together. In the base's conference room, Yu Qianzhou didn't have to wait long before Zhang Peng brought Wen Rui over. When Wen Rui saw Yu Qianzhou, he quickly bowed and said, Greetings, torture envoy. Haha. We're all acquaintances. Take a seat. Yu Qianzhou sat on the seat of honor. He asked curiously, I heard that you've been looking for me a few times. What's the matter? Wen Rui didn't sit. He walked up to him and cupped his hands. I've been trying to find out something, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to find out anything. Therefore, I'd like to ask the torture envoy. Yu Qianzhou's eyes flickered. He could roughly guess what Wen Rui wanted to ask, but he still wore a faint smile on his face. Ask away. There's no need to be so reserved. Then, I'll be presumptuous. Wen Rui cupped his hands again and said, Here's the thing. There are hundreds of cultivators from the Wen clan. Everyone knows that ancestor Wen Lanfeng has left with you, torture envoy. But this time, we didn't even get to see him. Chapter 1184. After Wen Rui left, Zhang Peng looked at his master in confusion. He felt that this was not his master's character. He didn't know if his master had other plans, so he approached and asked, Master. Are you really going to let him leave here alone? What he meant was the old rule. If it was inconvenient for him to be the bad guy, then he would be the scapegoat. He was used to being the scapegoat anyway, so he didn't mind taking one more. For example, Nongzhu almost fell out with him last time because of the Jasper Flower Fairy. However, Zhang Peng was now in power and decisive. His millions of troops only needed an order to attack immediately. Zhang Peng's face darkened, and Nongzhu couldn't do anything to him. After all, he wasn't Yu Qianzhou, and he wasn't familiar with him. He wouldn't give him a chance to scold and order him around. Zhang Peng was ready to get rid of Wen Rui as long as Yu Qianzhou didn't say anything. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianzhou, who was standing with his hands behind his back, thought of the Snow Empress and her husband in the Great Snow Mountain. He shook his head slightly and sighed, Let him go. After all, they are all acquaintances in the human world. I don't want to lose the last bit of old affection. He really didn't want to gain more and lose more. He sighed with emotion and a rare compassion. Zhang Peng had grown up on the battlefield and was used to living on the edge of a knife. His understanding of soft-heartedness was even more thorough than his master's. Once he discovered someone who was dangerous to the overall situation, he wouldn't even blink when he saw blood splattering everywhere. He frowned and said, What if he leaks the location of our base after leaving? So what? Yu Qianzhou, who was facing the wall in deep thought, turned around and said confidently, The base is in the ruins of God. Even if Sanyi knows we are inside, what can he do to us? The ruins of God is still too early to open. I don't think they can do anything to us. Besides, if Wen Rui is really a disloyal person, keeping him around is more dangerous than letting him go. Yes. This disciple understands. If there is nothing else, this disciple will take his leave. Zhang Peng respectfully retreated. Although he appeared to be obeying, he still felt that something was wrong. For him, as the commander of an army, if he did not plan for the overall situation, he would not be able to plan for a region, and if he did not plan for 10,000 generations, he would not be able to plan for a moment. This was also what his master had told him, and he had always believed it. Therefore, he had to be ready to deal with unexpected events at any time. Moreover, the world of cultivation was different from the mortal world. There were countless strange things happening, and nothing was absolute. If there was an emergency and he didn't handle it well, then he would be derelict in his duty. However, he still obeyed his master's decision unconditionally. However, he was prepared to make the best preparations within the scope of his authority. He decided to adjust the defense of the army so that he would not be caught off guard if an accident happened. Not long after Zhang Peng left, Nongzhu burst in again. As soon as she saw Yu Qianqiu, she pounded the table and yelled, "Yu Qianqiu! What do you mean? What's wrong? Why are you throwing such a tantrum? Who provoked you?" Yu Qianqiu pretended not to know the answer. "Cut it out. Don't tell me you don't know about Qianghua." Nongzhu told him what had happened. It turned out that after Qianghua Fairy was taken away by Zhang Peng, Qianghua Fairy told Zi that they were mother and daughter when he was in a coma. Now Zi looked sad when she saw him and ignored him. Ah! How could such a thing happen? Yu Qianqiu was surprised. He spread out his hands and said, "I really don't know. I'm sure it has nothing to do with me." Bullshit. Nongzhu kicked over the chair and pointed at Yu Qianqiu's nose. She scolded, "No one else knows about the thing between me and Qianghua except you. It's no wonder that you didn't instruct her. Now Zi doesn't care about me anymore. If you don't solve this problem, I won't let you go." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand with a solemn expression, indicating that he really wasn't the one who ordered this. Suddenly, he frowned and said, "I understand. I told Zhang Peng about your relationship with Fairy Jade Flower and asked him to take care of Fairy Jade Flower. Actually, I had good intentions. Later you were injured, so I asked Zhang Peng to arrange a careful woman to take care of you. Did that bastard take Qianghua Fairy to you?" "You." Nongzhu pointed at him and didn't know what to say. She also didn't know whether this guy was telling the truth or not. Although she felt that it was reasonable and could be true, she knew Yu Qianqiu too well. She always believed only 30% of the words that came out of his mouth. "Don't be angry. It really has nothing to do with me. Of course. I won't shirk my responsibility. I'll give you a satisfactory explanation." Yu Qianqiu walked over with a gloomy face and a faint murderous intent. He said in a low voice, "That Qianghua Fairy is so hateful. We can't vent our hatred if we don't teach her a lesson. How about this? I'll personally talk to Zi and tell her that Jasper Flower Fairy is a person with ulterior motives. I'll let Zhang Peng deal with the trouble he caused. I'll let Zhang Peng use military law to pry open her mouth and make her beg for death. I guarantee that she'll personally tell Zi that she lied to her before. What do you think?" Nongzhu was speechless. He sensed Yu Qianqiu's killing intent and did not doubt that this cruel and merciless guy would kill Qianghua Fairy. But to be honest, after all, they had been husband and wife for one night. Nongzhu did not want to torture Qianghua Fairy to the point where she begged for death. But he still said stubbornly, "Keep pretending." Then he swung his sleeves and left. Alas! "Don't go." Yu Qianqiu chased after him and shouted, "I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, I'll tell Zhang Peng first. If you want, you can ask Zhang Peng to deal with it. Get out of here." Nongzhu turned around and spat on his face, then left. Yu Qianqiu wiped the spittle off his face and hummed a Beijing opera song. "I was watching the mountain scenery from the tower when I heard the chaos outside the city. Flags fluttered in the air, but it turned out to be the soldiers sent by General Sima. With his hands behind his back, he walked back proudly. In the main bedroom of the backyard of the passionless palace in the mystic Immortal city, a woman's blood-boiling moan kept ringing. Sometimes it was low, sometimes it was loud and clear. After the violent crash, the muscular, naked Demon King 3 Knights lay down on the bed in a relaxed manner. The Demon King's charming eyes were like silk as she stretched out her curvaceous and proud white body. After cleaning the Demon King 3 Knights, she laid down on his chest and asked softly, "Demon King, you're a good girl. I heard news from the underworld that Bai Qi has gone missing. What's going on?" "Humph. He's looking for trouble. When the time comes, don't blame me for breaking my promise." The Demon King of 3 Knights' eyes flickered. He raised his hand and lifted the goose egg-like white chin on his chest. He smiled faintly and said, "Could it be that you're sleeping next to me, but you're thinking of Bai Qi? The two of you seem to have loved each other to death. Could it be that you still have feelings for him?" The Demon King of Azure Sky pushed his hand away and lay back on the bed. She snorted coldly and said, "I've already cut off all ties with him. If it wasn't for the Demon King's promise, just because he sealed me in the demon realm for so many years, I would have torn him to pieces." It was only when they were on the bed that she dared to make a move on the Demon King of 3 Knights. "Oh." The Demon King of 3 Knights gave a noncommittal, "Oh." Suddenly, Eunuch Lee knocked on the door and shouted, "Demon King." The Demon King of 3 Knights pushed the Demon King of Azure Sky away and got off the bed. The Demon King of Azure Sky hurriedly got up and helped him put on his armor and cloak. He watched as the Demon King of 3 Knights strode out. Then, he slowly took a few steps back and sat on the bed with his butt bare. He seemed to have lost something. Suddenly, he heard the conversation outside mention Yan Zhuixing. He immediately came to his senses and quickly put on his clothes. In the courtyard outside, the Demon King of 3 Knights suddenly turned around and asked, "He said he came from the human realm and just escaped from the hands of the ruins of God realm Yu Qianqiu. He's Vice Palace Lord Yan's servant?" Eunuch Lee bowed slightly and said, "Yes. I've checked. He was indeed affected by the demon eye ecstasy. It shouldn't be fake. All the passages leading to the human realm have been cut off. I thought that Yu Qianqiu wanted to stay in the human realm and not interfere with the matters of our demonic path army. I didn't think that he would actually hide in the ruins of God realm." The Demon King of 3 Knights sneered and said, "Bring that person to see me. Also, bring Vice Palace Lord Yan over to confront him." Eunuch Lee quickly left and brought Yan Zhuixing and Wen Rui over not long after. Yan Zhuixing had already recovered to his original state. He had suffered a great loss in the demon realm and had his physical body destroyed. If not for the miraculous demonic arts and the 3 Knights and the others helping him find a suitable body to take over, he probably wouldn't have recovered so quickly. As for Wen Rui, because he had long been controlled by Yan Zhuixing's demon eye, after thinking of ways to get Yu Qianqiu to be sent out of the ruins of God realm, he immediately found the people of the demon realm and declared that he was Yan Zhuixing's subordinate. When the people of the demon realm heard that he was Vice Palace Lord Yan's subordinate, they didn't dare to delay and immediately arranged for him to be sent over to verify. When the master and servant met, Yan Zhuixing had already asked about Wen Rui's situation on the way here, so he already had an understanding of the situation. After arriving at the backyard, the two of them bowed to the Demon King of 3 Knights. Wen Rui then gave a detailed answer to the Demon King of 3 Knights' questions about the situation in the ruins of God realm. Just what kind of mystical treasure is it, to actually be able to travel back and forth between the 3 realms at will? The Demon King of 3 Knights' eyes flickered and said, "No wonder the passage to the human realm was sealed, and Yu Qianqiu was still able to run to the already sealed ruins of God realm." The Azure Sky Great Demon King had already tidied himself up and stood quietly behind him. For a woman to be able to come out of the Demon King of 3 Knights' bedroom, it was obvious what she had done before. Yan Zhuixing couldn't help but take a few more glances, but what he was most worried about was that the human realm was sealed. There were still people he cared about there. However, there were some secrets that he didn't want to completely confess, so he impatiently cupped his hands and said, "Demon King. My mother and sister are still in the hands of Yu Qianqiu. Please think of a way to save them, Demon King. Of course. The Demon King of Three Knights nodded, then tilted his head slightly and said, that sealed ruins of God realm, Jin Tai should know better than us. Eunuch Li understood what he meant. He wanted to find Jin Tai, so he bowed slightly and left. Chapter 1185. Jin Tai, who had been summoned, felt apprehensive. He did not know why the Demon Lord had summoned him, but he did not dare delay and rushed over as fast as he could. Demon Lord Three Knights stared at Jin Tai and said indifferently, back when my devil path dominated the three realms, I had never heard of the Divine Ruin Realm. Tell me in detail what this Divine Ruin Realm is. Yes. Jin Tai bowed and glanced at the people present. He was a little curious in his heart, but he still answered honestly, although the Divine Ruin Realm and the Netherworld Divine Palace are located in the Immortal Realm and the Netherworld respectively, they are actually similar. It's just that the Netherworld Divine Palace was created by the Coiling Dragon God, while the Divine Ruin Realm was created by the Phoenix God. There are all kinds of fierce beasts in the Divine Ruins Realm, and their cultivations are all different. The one with the highest cultivation is a rainbow-feathered lion king with a cultivation similar to mine, and he is the current lord of the Divine Ruins Realm. When I fought with him back then, he was slightly weaker than me, but I was also unable to kill him. Created by the Phoenix God. Demon Lord Three Knights pondered for a moment, then asked, do you have any way to enter the Divine Ruin Realm? Jin Tai answered truthfully, the passage to the Divine Ruin Realm is a bit strange. It only opens once every 100 years, and there is still some time before it opens again. If you want to enter, you will have to wait until it opens again. This subordinate has no other way to enter. I didn't call you here to listen to your refusal, I wanted you to think of a way. Demon Lord Three Knights' eyes flashed with red light, I let you rule the immortal world for so many years, yet you can't even do such a small thing. What's the difference between you and trash, what's the use of keeping you? Jin Tai trembled in fear. Just as he was about to beg, his eyes suddenly moved and he revealed a look of joy, reporting to the Demon Lord, although I have no way to enter, there is someone who might have a way. However, I cannot invite that person, I'm afraid the Demon Lord will have to find him personally. Yan Juexing's eyes also lit up as he looked at Three Knights with some hope. Oh. Who is so arrogant that I have to personally invite him? Demon Lord Three Knights said, don't beat around the bush, just say who it is. Old Man Mu of the Ancient Forest. Jin Tai observed his expression and said, back then, the reason why I was able to deal with that Myriad Swords demon monarch was because he gave me pointers in the Divine Ruin Realm, allowing me to find the Phoenix Plume and refine the soul transformation smoke. In this subordinate's opinion, he should be very familiar with the Divine Ruin Realm. Mu Yuanzi. Demon Monarch Three Knights muttered to himself. After seeing Yan Juexing's hopeful gaze, he closed his eyes and said, all right. It's settled then, Kinta. Come with me to the ancient forest. Kintai's expression stiffened, and he immediately panicked. He didn't expect that Senyu would ask him to go with him. He immediately cursed Bai Qi in his heart. Why did he drag Old Man Mu into this? If they confronted each other later, wouldn't he die a horrible death? He had thought that as long as he didn't face Old Man Mu, he would have a million reasons to convince the Demon Lord of Three Knights that Old Man Mu was lying if he asked about it later. Given his temper, if he couldn't deal with Old Man Mu, he wouldn't have gone to look for Old Man Mu again and again. However, there was no other way. Demon Monarch Three Knights did as he said. After instructing Eunuch Li to guard the house well, he flung his scarlet cloak and flew away. Kintai didn't dare to hesitate and could only bite the bullet and chase after him. However, he already had an idea in his mind. He had the thought that it was better for him to die than for himself. Anyway, he wasn't the one who said it. He was prepared to push all the blame onto Bai Qi and think of a way to protect himself first. After the people in the courtyard dispersed, Yan Juexing led Wen Rui back to his heavily guarded mountain. He had just instructed Wen Rui to settle down and was about to return to his room to wait for news from Demon Monarch Three Knights when a guard ran in and reported, Demon Monarch Qing Tian requests to see you. Oh. Quickly invite him in. Yan Juexing ordered. He waited for a while before slowly walking out to welcome him. Although demon monarch Qing Tian was an old minister of the devil world and had a higher cultivation than him, he didn't want others to see that he was eager to curry favor with him. Before he walked out of the inner courtyard, demon monarch Qing Tian walked over with a smile. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Vice Palace Lord." Yan Juexing cupped his hands politely and said, "May I know what advice Lord Qing Tian has for me?" How would this subordinate dare to give advice to Vice Palace Lord Yan? The demon king of Qing Tian stroked his hair and said with a concerned expression, "I heard that the Vice Palace Master was frightened previously. I don't know if this physical body is suitable for you to possess. I'm proficient in a set of techniques, and I'm willing to help the Vice Palace Master loosen up your bones." After saying that, he looked around. Seeing that there was no one else around, he directly walked past Yan Juexing and entered his room. He waved his hand and said, "Vice Palace Lord, quickly come and lie down on the bed." Yan Juexing was momentarily confused by her. He thought that she had something secretive to report. Who knew that just as he entered the room with a heavy heart, demon monarch Qing Tian closed the door and pulled Yan Juexing to press him down on the bed, really letting him massage him. "What are you doing?" Yan Juexing was shocked. Who knew that there was still more to come? Just as he was about to get up, demon monarch Qing Tian had already taken off her clothes and was on top of him. Yan Juexing flipped over and pushed her away. He flashed to the door and opened it. Standing at the door to prove that he was open and aboveboard, he said, "Lord Qing Tian, please leave quickly. I can pretend that I don't know anything." Demon monarch Qing Tian laid on the bed and giggled seductively. "Vice Palace Lord, what are you afraid of? I have been serving Lord Devil God all the way until Devil King 3 nights. My responsibility is to serve every generation's Devil King well. Vice Palace Lord will ascend to the Devil King's throne sooner or later, so there's no need to hold back. Even if Devil King knows, he won't say anything. Otherwise, Qing Tian wouldn't dare to disturb you." Yan Juexing had long heard of demon monarch Qing Tian's beauty. Although he knew that she had countless men in her bedchamber, and although his heart was moved by this woman, he wouldn't touch Devil King 3 nights woman before he ascended to the Devil King's throne. Who knew if she was sent to test him? He cupped his hands and said, "I still have some things to do. Lord Qing Tian, please do as you wish." After saying that, he quickly left. After Yu Qianqiu brought Wen Rui to the celestial realm, they separated. He didn't know that Wen Rui had already betrayed him. In order to not alert the enemy in the celestial realm and to avoid directly going against Devil King 3 nights, Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong secretly captured a few people from the Devil Dao to interrogate them. They didn't manage to get any information about the Earth Spirit. It seemed like they didn't know who the Earth Spirit was. However, they did get information that Jin Tai was in the illusory Immortal City. In the underground space created by the Earth Art, Hong Tailong directly killed a captive that didn't get any information. He turned around and asked, "What do we do? It seems like we still have to find high-level people from the Devil Dao to ask about the Earth Spirit's whereabouts. However, if we make a move, we will definitely alert others. We can't capture these small shrimps silently. We might be surrounded and attacked by other experts, or we might have to face Devil King 3 nights directly. Should we run further away and capture a Devil Dao expert in the Netherworld to ask? F***CK. Since we know where Jin Tai is, let's go to the illusory Immortal City to investigate. If we can capture Jin Tai, we should be able to ask him who the Earth Spirit is." Yu Qianqiu stared at him and asked, "Do you dare to come with me?" "What am I afraid of?" Hong Tailong patted his chest heroically. However, his aura instantly weakened as he reminded, "If you can't win, you must remember to bring me along when you run. You worry too much. If something happens and I really can't save you in time, you can just bring Yi Tiankong out to protect yourself." Yu Qianqiu snickered. "You really plan on leaving me behind if something happens?" Hong Tailong was a little anxious. "How could I? I promise I won't abandon you. I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been a man of my word. Once I say it, it's a done deal. Yu Qianqiu guaranteed with his character. Oh my god. Don't scare me. I'm really not a match for Devil King 3 Knights. If you didn't say that, I would still be confident. But the moment you say it, I'm trembling in fear. This old dragon has personally seen you pull out the nail. Hong Tailong pulled him back and said anxiously, explain it clearly first. If you don't explain it clearly, I won't take that risk. Cut the crap. With a mid-stage Great God Fire Soul Mystic weapon, are you still afraid that we won't have enough time to escape? Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and the two disappeared into the ground at the same time. In the center of the ancient forest, on top of the scarlet-red cliffs, a winding river quietly flowed above the exposed red rocks. The ancient language tree was covered with golden leaves like a golden umbrella. The nervous Jin Tai had been hoping that Devil King 3 Knights wouldn't be able to find Mu Yuanzi. However, when he saw Devil King 3 Knights flying in a certain direction, he immediately guessed that the other party probably had a way to find Mu Yuanzi. As expected, when he reached the ancient language tree, he saw Devil King 3 Knights standing there, slapping the ancient language tree repeatedly. The entire ancient language tree shook violently. Jin Tai didn't know why he was doing this, so he waited silently to the side. After a while, Devil King 3 Knights stopped slapping the tree and slowly turned around to look behind him. Jin Tai suddenly turned around and saw Mu Yuanzi walking out of a wall of light with a large wooden staff. Mu Yuanzi stared at Jin Tai and shouted, Jin Tai. How dare you ignore my words and come to my ancient forest? Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Jin Tai hurriedly flashed behind Devil King 3 Knights and stood with his hands behind his back. Devil King 3 Knights had brought him here to verify spiritual master Mu Yuanzi so that he wouldn't find the wrong person. Seeing this, Jin Tai didn't need to ask any questions to know that this person was definitely the person he was looking for. He smiled faintly and said, when my devil Dao roamed the 3 realms, we always abided by our ancestors' teachings and didn't easily disturb the ancient forest. That's why Third Knight never had the chance to pay a visit to Senior Mu. I have no choice but to make a sudden visit this time. Please forgive me, Senior Mu. With this, Mu Yuanzi no longer paid attention to Jin Tai. Instead, he stared at Third Knight and said in a low voice, You're the third Devil King of the Devil World, Devil King 3 Knights? His tone was somewhat shocked. Glancing at Jin Tai, he faintly guessed that this guy had probably reopened the Devil World. That's right. Devil King 3 Knights cupped his hands slightly as a sign of respect. Chapter 1186. Mu Yuanzi stood there indifferently with his cane. Even the demon god of the past had to give him some face. He felt that 3 Knights' respect was only natural. He stood there and asked indifferently, What business does the demon lord have in my ancient forest? After so many years, 3 Knights had forgotten that there was someone who dared to put on airs in front of him. A faint red light appeared in his eyes, and he lost interest in pleasantries. However, he still had a faint smile on his face. I want to ask Senior Mu about something. 3 Knights has something to do in the Divine Ruin Realm, but it's not time to open yet, so I want to ask Senior to show me a way in. Mu Yuanzi's cold gaze swept over Jin Tai, and then he snorted, with the demon lord's strength, unifying the 3 realms is not a problem. Do you want to even go to the Divine Ruin Realm? Listen to my advice, greed will not end well. This was a warning. The smile on Demon Lord 3 Knights' face disappeared, and the scarlet cape fluttering in the wind instantly stopped. He said indifferently, I won't hide it from Senior, a pair of people used some unknown method to escape into the Divine Ruin Realm. I must kill them, so I ask Senior to show me the way. Mu Yuanzi's expression changed slightly, and he said with a frown, Is there someone in the 3 realms who knows how to open the Divine Ruin Realm? Who? Yu Qianqiu. Demon Lord 3 Knights didn't hide anything. Yu Qianqiu. Mu Yuanzi froze, and then said in shock, How can he open the passage to the Divine Ruin Realm? I don't know about this, but it seems that Senior Mu also knows Yu Qianqiu. Demon Lord Three Knight's tone changed, and he said word by word, from Senior's words, "You definitely know how to open the Divine Ruin Realm. Please teach me. I don't know how to open the Divine Ruin Realm, so don't disturb me in the future." Mu Yuanzi said stiffly, and then turned to open the profound wave light wall to return to his Mu Killer Sea. Mu Yuanzi. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Demon Lord Three Knight's cold and threatening voice sounded behind him. Mu Yuanzi abruptly turned around and slammed the wooden staff in his hand into the ground. His eyes shone brightly as he shouted, "Even demonic god Yi doesn't dare to be so rude to me. Since when did it become your turn to be so impudent?" Under the golden leaves of the ancient language tree, the scarlet cape suddenly fluttered in the wind. Demon Monarch Three Knights snorted coldly and said, "Mu Yuanzi. I won't beat around the bush with you." The ancestor, Lord Devil God, had crossed the mortal realm and god realm and accepted a disciple in the lower realm. Previously, Lord Devil God had directly torn open the void and saved the disciple's life from the divine realm. Now that the disciple's parents had fallen into the hands of Yu Qianqiu, San Yi, as a descendant of Devil God, naturally had to share Devil God's burden. He couldn't let Lord Devil God personally take care of everything. This concerns Lord Devil God's face, so I, San Yi, have no choice but to help. What? Mu Yuanzi exclaimed when he heard this. He did not think that the demonic god would actually accept a disciple from the lower realm, and he did not think that the demonic god would directly come from the immortal world to help this disciple. Not to mention that this cultivation was too shocking, the demonic god's actions were even more shocking. Demon Monarch Three Knights snorted and continued, "If you are willing to help me, San Yi, we'll follow the old rules of the Night Clan and restrict the heroes of the Devil Dao from invading your ancient forest. But if you don't give me this face, then don't blame me for not caring about the feelings of the older generation. For Lord Devil God, I, San Yi, can do anything, and I will do it at any cost. Although your cultivation is higher than mine, you should know the power of my Devil God arts. If we fight, it's not certain who will win. If I want to destroy your ancient forest, it will only take an instant. You won't be able to do anything to me. I hope that Senior will reconsider and not force San Yi to do something he doesn't want to do." This was a completely naked threat, and also a final ultimatum. It was clearly telling Mu Yuanzi that he had to agree whether he wanted to or not. Hiding to the side, Jin Tai was secretly envious of Demon Monarch Three Knights' strength. He didn't know when he would have such an awe-inspiring moment. Mu Yuanzi's gaze was fixed on the unmoving Demon Monarch Three Knights. His expression was dark and gloomy. No one had ever threatened him like this in many years, but he knew that Demon Monarch Three Knights was speaking the truth. He had interacted with the Devil God before, so he naturally knew how terrifying the Devil God arts were. Although San Ye's cultivation was slightly lower than his, it was almost impossible for him to defeat San Yi. Moreover, he knew that there was an even more terrifying person behind San Yi. That person wore white robes and a white hat, and had been following Devil God Knight for a long time. His strength was extremely terrifying, but he was unusually low-key and loyal to the Night Clan. After some thought, Mu Yuanzi gave in. There was another important reason why he gave in. That was because he didn't have a good impression of Yu Qianqiu to begin with. Yu Qianqiu's wood elemental magic arts inexplicably made him feel a little apprehensive. Logically speaking, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, he shouldn't have felt this way, but every time he saw Yu Qianqiu, he would feel a little uneasy. Mu Yuanzi took out a jade archive, quickly injected something into it, and threw it to Demon Monarch Three Knights. He warned sternly, "I hope you keep your promise. Otherwise, this old man will make you regret it." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his staff and summoned a wall of light. His figure flashed into it, and the wall of light that rippled like water also disappeared. Demon Monarch Three Knights looked at the jade archive for a while, then slowly nodded. "So that's how it is. Come, let's go back." He transformed into a streak of light and quickly flew away. Jin Tai, on the other hand, was stunned. He didn't think that the two of them wouldn't talk about what he was worried about because they didn't get along. He happily chased after him. Under the night sky, in illusory Immortal City, Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong, who had killed 2 devil soldiers, changed into their clothes. They had more or less figured out the situation in illusory Immortal City. The defenses here weren't as tight as they thought, because the demonic cultivators didn't believe that anyone from the netherworld or immortal realm would have the guts to come here and throw their lives away. Although they didn't manage to find out who the earth spirit was, they managed to find out the mountain where Jin Tai and Yan Juixing lived. The 2 of them hid underground. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and said, "That bastard Yan Juixing really isn't dead yet. He'll definitely be a disaster if we let him live." "Then which one are you planning to make a move on?" Hong Tailong unnaturally tugged at his clothes that were a little too small. He frowned and said, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. Although the defenses here aren't tight, there are many experts here. If we make a move on one of them, we'll definitely alert the others. We won't have a chance to target the other one. Have you thought clearly about who to make a move on?" After some hesitation, Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Let's put aside the grudge between me and that bastard for now. Ocean's 2 attacks have already made me lose the confidence to kill him. Now that Jin Tai has been defeated by Demon Monarch 3 Knights, the mountain he lives in doesn't even have any subordinates or guards. It's a good opportunity for us to make a move. Let's go, we'll deal with Jin Tai first." "All right. I think so too." Hong Tailong rubbed his palms together and said. The 2 of them emerged from the ground. In order to not arouse suspicion, they swaggered through the mountain range. When they found the mountain Jin Tai lived in, they discovered that there really weren't any guards inside or outside the manor. The 2 of them directly flew in. The moment they landed, Hong Tailong rolled his eyes and shouted with his throat pinched, "Jin Tai! Demon Monarch is looking for you! Jin Tai! Demon Monarch is looking for you!" However, even after searching the entire manor twice, they couldn't find a single person. Hong Tailong pretended to be mysterious and shouted for a long time, but no one answered. Finally, they confirmed that Jin Tai wasn't here, or that he had left due to some matters. In the end, the 2 of them decided that if they couldn't find Jin Tai, they would take the opportunity to kill Yan Juixing. Thus, they found the mountain Yan Juixing lived in. However, the guards outside the manor were extremely tight. The 2 of them didn't dare to force their way in and alert the enemy. In the end, they sneakily used the earth art at the foot of the mountain and directly appeared in the manor at the top of the mountain. Demon King Qing Tian was still lying naked on Yan Juixing's bed, but she pulled a golden blanket to cover her body. She didn't believe that Yan Juixing wouldn't come back. This time, if she didn't take advantage of the fact that Demon Monarch 3 Knights wasn't here, she would definitely not stop. She was very confident in her body and didn't believe that Yan Juixing could keep rejecting her. Suddenly, he heard the sound of sneaky footsteps outside. The Azure Sky Demon King instantly covered his mouth and laughed. Who would dare to sneak around Vice Palace Head Yan's residence other than Yan Juixing? Who else could it be? Yan Juixing might even want to see if he was still there. He immediately chuckled and said, "Vice Palace Head Yan, the Demon Monarch has brought Jin Tai out. What are you afraid of? This servant is about to fall asleep from waiting. Come quickly." Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong, who were sneaking around in the courtyard, were instantly stunned. So Demon Monarch 3 Knights brought Jin Tai out. No wonder they couldn't find Jin Tai. This meant that Demon Monarch 3 Knights wasn't in the illusory Immortal City. Furthermore, they had a great god intermediate stage fire soul mystic soldier. What was there to be afraid of? The 2 of them exchanged delighted glances and mistakenly thought that they had found the right place. Yan Juixing was having an affair in the house. Yu Qianqiu transmitted a message, "That bastard is sleeping with a woman inside. I will guard outside to prevent him from escaping. You will barge in and sneak attack him while he is distracted. You must use all your strength to kill him in one strike." As he spoke, he took out his god arrow in preparation. Hong Tailong smiled evilly and nodded. Without saying anything else, he directly broke through the window and entered. Suddenly, a woman's stern shout came from inside. "Who is it?" Boom! There was a loud explosion that shook the earth and the mountains. The house was instantly blasted into smithereens. Soil, rocks, and wood shavings flew everywhere. 2 streams of light shot into the sky. Hong Tailong looked at the other party with his mouth agape. He didn't expect that there was no one else in the room. It was just a naked woman. Furthermore, her cultivation was very high. In the sky, the completely naked demon monarch Qing Tian flashed with a green light. He had already put on a set of clothes, and his face was filled with killing intent. Yu Qianqiu knew that things weren't going well. Just as he was about to say that he had fallen into a trap and retreat, he suddenly heard Yan Zhuixing's voice shouting from the other side of the courtyard, "What's the matter?" He had already flown into the sky. All the guards had also quickly flashed into the sky. People from all directions immediately rushed over upon hearing the voice. "He is Yan Zhuixing. Quickly kill him." Yu Qianqiu pointed to the sky and shouted angrily. The god arrow in his hand had already turned into thousands of streams of light and shot out. Chapter 1187. When Yan Zhuixing heard this unforgettable voice, he was also shocked. When he looked down and saw his old foe, he cried out involuntarily, "Yu Qianqiu." He was truly afraid of Yu Qianqiu. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect Yu Qianqiu to actually dare to come here to assassinate him. Yu Qianqiu was too daring. When he saw the familiar 10,000 golden lights shooting over, he instantly shivered in fear. Without saying anything, he turned around and ran. Hong Tailong also didn't say anything and wanted to chase after him. The clear sky great demon king shouted, "Protect Vice Palace Lord Yen." His voice reverberated in all directions as he teleported to block Hong Tailong. In the blink of an eye, the two of them engaged in a fierce battle in the sky. Knowing that the demon lord 3 nights wasn't around, Yu Qianqiu's guts grew. The 10,000 golden lights were like his arms and fingers. He rushed into the group of people blocking him and slaughtered them. The 10,000 divine swords were unstoppable, and the people blocking him fled with their hands covering their heads. Yu Qianqiu's divine swords protected him and was invincible. He instantly broke through the encirclement and shouted angrily, "Yan Zhuixing, stop right there." He immediately chased after him. He swore that he wouldn't stop until he killed him. "How dare you!" At this moment, experts rushed over from all directions and mercilessly joined hands to stop Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu's cultivation was too low. Even with the divine swords in hand, he could only barely protect himself. He had no choice but to retract the 10,000 divine swords to protect himself. Boom! On the other side, the clear sky great demon king, who was fighting fiercely with Hong Tailong, suddenly exploded with countless wooden roots. The sky was filled with nowhere to hide, and it directly wrapped around Hong Tailong. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. Bang! Countless wooden roots were blasted away. A 2,000 feet long red dragon was incomparably majestic. It danced in the sky in a shocking manner. At the same time, a stream of light passed through the countless wooden roots in the dragon's claw, and a golden chain directly wrapped around the clear sky great demon king's neck. Dragon! Cries of surprise could be heard from all around. The azure sky devil king's expression changed even more. She used all her strength but still could not break free from the dragon binding rope. On the roof of the Heartless Palace's former branch, Eunuch Li, who was dressed in white and wearing a white hat, stood with his hands behind his back as he looked over. After seeing the giant red dragon, his calm pupils constricted a little. Yan Zhuixing, who was hiding beside him, heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu was struggling to move forward, the huge dragon's claw swung the chain, and with a hong sound, the azure sky great demon king, who was unable to move freely, directly collapsed a mountain. The azure sky great demon king was immediately decapitated, and his head was separated from his corpse. Roar! Another dragon roar sounded, and the two dragon-binding ropes in the giant dragon's claws lashed out in all directions like thunder, charging directly at Yu Qianqiu. Meanwhile, the demon king of Qing Tian, who had fallen to the ground with his head separated from his body, suddenly stood up. The headless corpse waved its hand toward the distance, and the head immediately flew back. The head reattached to the neck, and the hands returned to normal. Damn it! The demon king of Qing Tian let out a furious roar that sounded like a ferocious spirit. With a teleportation, the other 6 great demon kings who were overseeing this place also flashed over at the same time. The 7 great demon kings surrounded the extremely arrogant huge dragon and gave it a violent beating, causing Hong Tailong to howl in pain. After all, the great demon king's cultivation was not to be trifled with. It was only because his dragon race's flesh and blood body was extremely strong. If it was someone else, they would have been killed long ago. However, he was also beaten to the point where his entire body was covered in blood. The situation was critical, and Yu Qianqiu could no longer hold back. He had already prepared the true Samadhi fire in Utopia for emergency use, and he summoned the infernal soldier that was condensed from the true Samadhi fire that he had prepared in Utopia in case of an emergency. The true Samadhi fire charged out of the encirclement of the 10,000 divine swords, and in an instant, the experts who were heavily encircled outside were beaten to a pulp. In the blink of an eye, several hundred experts fell to the ground while wailing in pain from the inextinguishable 7-colored flames. Once the infernal soldier broke free, it charged toward Hong Tailong to help him out. True Samadhi fire. Countless exclamations rang out in the illusory immortal city. The 7 demon kings who had joined hands were taken aback. Before they could react, one of them was smacked into a ball of fire by the infernal soldier, and he fell to the ground while spitting out fresh blood. The remaining 6 demon kings did not expect that the cultivation level of this infernal soldier would be so high, and he could instantly kill a great demon king with just a raise of his hand. They were instantly scared out of their wits, and they immediately teleported away without any hesitation. When Hong Tailong broke free and saw that he had the help of a great god infernal soldier, he immediately roared, "All of you, die!" Shaking his head and wagging his tail, he chased after them. Hong Tailong, come back here. Let's retreat. Yu Qianqiu shouted madly, and at the same time, he took out the last of his reserves without caring about the price. All the true Samadhi fire that he had stored in his body gushed out, and the surrounding people instantly let out countless wails of pain. After the true Samadhi fire exploded, it quickly retracted and attached itself to the 10,000 divine swords. Rainbow lights danced in the air, and they directly opened up a path of blood, charging towards the returning Hong Tailong. The 2 of them were preparing to rendezvous and leave this place. Seeing that the 2 of them wanted to escape, Eunuch Li, who was standing with his hands behind his back, let out a cold snort. He put down his hands behind his back, and his figure disappeared from the roof. Yan Juixing looked left and right, and instantly felt a little unsafe. Hong Tailong, who was hurriedly returning, suddenly realized that his neck had stiffened, and he stopped flying in the air. Yu Qianqiu cried out in alarm, "Hong Tailong, be careful." A large illusory hand suddenly appeared in the sky, and with a speed as fast as lightning, it grabbed Hong Tailong's neck. With just a bit of force, Hong Tailong spurted out a mouthful of blood, and a large tongue dangled out like the tongue of a dog under the shade of a tree. His 2 large eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. If that giant hand wanted to kill Hong Tailong, it would be as easy as pinching an ant to death. Yu Qianqiu saw that person in white clothes and white hat high up in the sky. The giant hand was illusory from his body, and he immediately said in a stern voice, "Yi Tiankong's little life is in my hands. Try and kill him." The expressionless eunuch Li's countenance changed when he heard that. He suddenly stared at Yu Qianqiu, and the giant hand grabbed Hong Tailong and smashed him. A red light shot towards the ground, and with a boom, the ground trembled. Hong Tailong's enormous body directly blasted a deep pit on the ground. Meanwhile, the fire soul profound weapon had already pounced into the sky, and a fist was blasted out like a thunderbolt. The illusory giant hand on eunuch Li's body clenched into a fist, and actually clashed with the incoming heavy fist. With a loud bang, the astral winds that rippled out were like millions of mountains that were pushed down in all directions. The entire psychedelic immortal city immediately suffered the baptism of an incomparably powerful shock wave. The visible wave of air that spread out was like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. In an instant, countless mountains were flung away, houses and buildings were turned into ashes, and there were even innumerable figures that were instantly torn into pieces. Hong Tai Long, who had transformed back into his human form, had just climbed out of the deep pit when he was struck by the powerful wave of air. He spat out blood and fell into the deep pit, and was almost buried alive. It was unimaginable how a person could dig out such a huge pit in such a short period of time. Countless chunks of soil from the sky didn't even have time to fall. Eunuch Lee stood at the center of the huge pit with a gloomy expression. After scanning the surroundings, he flew into the sky, and the countless chunks of soil that covered the starry sky finally fell down with a rumble. In just a short while, the entire pit was filled up again. The ground trembled, and as the endless dust covered the sky, Eunuch Lee had come out of the ground again. He floated in the sky and looked down silently. His expression was so gloomy that it seemed like water could be squeezed out of it. He didn't say anything for a long time. Ever since he had ascended as a demon god, he had never made a move easily. Once he did, he had never failed. However, he had failed today. He had let two people with lower cultivation than him slip away under his nose. Furthermore, they were two people with lower cultivation than him. Demon King 3 Knights, who had rushed back through the night, had heard the commotion here from far away. In a great shock, he had sped up and rushed back. He had encountered many of his subordinates that had scattered. When he arrived at the illusory immortal city, he discovered that the entire city had been destroyed. The entire landscape had changed, as if a divine plow had fallen from the sky and plowed through everything. Even with his vast experience and knowledge, he was secretly shocked. Seeing the silent Eunuch Lee floating in the sky, he quickly went over and asked, "What happened?" Eunuch Lee took a deep breath, and his gloomy expression returned to normal. He bowed slightly to Demon King 3 Knights and said, "Yu Qianqiu snuck into the illusory immortal city to assassinate the Vice Palace Lord in the middle of the night. This subordinate's attack wasn't good, and he still managed to escape." "What?" Demon King 3 Knights was shocked. "Even you let him escape?" Chapter 1188. At the same time, he quickly looked around and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw a few demon kings protecting Yan Zhuixing. The demonic path army that had scattered in all directions also regrouped. All of them looked at Eunuch Lee with lingering fear, frightened by his methods. At this moment, Jintai also hurried back and looked around in bewilderment. Eunuch Lee quietly floated to 3 Knights' side and said solemnly, "Let's not talk about this subordinate's incompetence for now." What shocked this subordinate the most was that there was a huge red dragon that came with Yu Qianqiu to assassinate him. Dragon? Demon King 3 Knights suddenly turned around and said, "You mean a dragon from the god realm? A huge red dragon?" Jintai smacked his lips and suddenly exclaimed, "Could it be Hong Tai Long? Could it be that he's not dead?" Eunuch Lee slowly looked at him and nodded slightly, "That's right." Yu Qianqiu called that huge red dragon Hong Tai Long. Demon King 3 Knights also turned around and revealed a questioning look. Jintai hurriedly bowed and explained that Hong Tai Long was the mount of that demon lord of 10,000 swords. However, I personally saw him and demon lord of 10,000 swords fall into the soul-transforming smoke. I didn't expect him to still be alive. This subordinate is worried that demon lord of 10,000 swords is still alive. However, since the divine arrow is in Yu Qianqiu's hands, the chances of demon lord of 10,000 swords surviving are not high. Otherwise, he would definitely come for revenge. I didn't expect the God Realm's dragon race to also participate in this matter. Demon King 3 Knights' eyes flickered. That dragon is not worthy of fear. This subordinate can easily kill him. Eunuch Lee suddenly reported with a serious expression. Just as this subordinate was about to kill that dragon, Yu Qianqiu suddenly called out fourth young master's name. "What?" Demon King Three Knights' body trembled. He turned around and looked at Eunuch Lee in disbelief. What did you just say? Jean Tai was stunned. He didn't know where this fourth young master came from. Back when he was in the demon realm, the demon lord only had 2 sons. This subordinate dares not speak nonsense. Eunuch Lee bowed, looked at San Yi and slowly said, Yu Qianqiu said that Yi Tiankong's life was in his hands. I don't know how he knew fourth young master's name, and I don't know if it's true or false, but it did make this subordinate hesitate to take action. Night Sky? Jean Tai thought about it carefully. He had no impression of this name at all. It should be the first time he had heard of it. Yu Qianqiu. Demon Lord Three Knights squeezed out these 3 words from between his teeth. He then flung his scarlet cape and said with a cold glint in his eyes, I don't care if what he said is true or false. Immediately gather the army and make detailed preparations. This attack must be foolproof. We can't let him escape again. When this lord enters the Divine Ruins realm, I will capture him and personally interrogate him. Eunuch Lee did not forget to remind him, Demon Lord, you must not underestimate Yu Qianqiu. This person can actually summon a middle-stage great god fireman, and it is a fireman condensed from true Samadhi fire, forcing me to not dare to go all out. He is not simple. There is such a thing? Demon Lord Three Knights stared at Jean Tai, as if he wanted to hear his explanation. Jean Tai hurriedly bowed and said, this subordinate has never heard of any true Samadhi fireman. As Yu Qianqiu's cultivation increased day by day, the territory of Utopia became wider and wider, and the sea had already appeared. On an isolated island in the depths of the sea, 2 figures fell to the ground, sprawled on the ground, panting. Damn it. The demonic path is indeed full of experts. I thought that after Demon Lord Three Knights left, I would be able to deal with him, but who knew that an incomparably powerful guy would appear? Even my middle stage great god Fire's soul profound weapon couldn't stop him, too terrifying. Hong Tai Long. Yu Qianqiu got up, shook Hong Tai Long who was covered in blood, and said anxiously, are you all right? I won't die yet. Hong Tai Long sat up and said with a bitter smile, that person is indeed powerful. If you didn't say Yi Tiankong's name at the crucial moment, I would have probably died in his hands. I'll send you to the Divine Ruin realm to recuperate. At least there will be someone to take care of you when you need it. Yu Qianqiu stood up. He was fine, but he was scared out of his wits. Hong Tai Long patted the blood and mud on his face. Hearing the hidden meaning in Yu Yang's words, he raised his head and asked, what do you want to do? I'll make a trip to the netherworld and think of a way to find out who the Earth Spirit is. If I don't devour the Earth Spirit and refine more high-grade Earth Soul profound weapons, we won't have any hope of winning against the demonic path. Yu Qianqiu sighed. With a wave of his hand, the 2 of them disappeared. Returning to the Divine Ruin realm, Wei Chuanxiu and the others were shocked to see Hong Tai Long heavily injured. Yu Qianqiu left Hong Tai Long for them to take care of, then slipped away to the netherworld. In the dark netherworld, he was like a lonely night walker, searching for the ray of light that could change the fate of the 3 realms, even though his own methods weren't bright. Outside the Divine Ruin realm, in the depths of the endless granite mountain range, was the entrance to the Divine Ruin realm from the Immortal realm. Boom! Following a not too loud sound, the entrance, which was originally sealed, suddenly reopened. A dot of white light expanded and rotated in the cave. Outside the cave, the 3 million demonic army covered the sky and earth. Demon Lord Three Knights flashed to the top of the mountain and looked down. Eunuch Lee, who was beside him, waved his hand and the 3 million army moved, rushing into the passage like a heavenly river flowing backwards. Under Wen Rui's guidance, the army that entered the Divine Ruin realm quickly dispersed towards the base of the human army, flanking the 2 sides. The demonic army held their breaths and concentrated, moving stealthily under the cover of the fog. The order that the various armies received was to completely surround the base of the human army. Before receiving the order to attack, no one was allowed to act on their own, alerting the enemy. When the remaining 100,000 troops, under the leadership of the Demon King Qing Tian, guarded the entrance to the Divine Ruin Realm. Demon Lord 3 knights led Eunuch Li and the others into the Divine Ruin Realm. Due to Yu Qianzhou's momentary softness, a huge net was currently surrounding the human army, and a catastrophic disaster was approaching the human army from all directions. Fortunately, Zhang Peng used the transparent spider silk of the temple rainbow spiders 100 miles away from the base to set up a communication device in the misty mountain range. Once they received the report, the people hiding in the surroundings immediately became alert and quickly checked. When they saw the densely packed group of people quietly approaching the base, they were all shocked and quickly crushed their communication jade talismans. Some people didn't even have the time to report before they were discovered and died on the spot. Ah! A few screams sounded in the quiet fog. Yan Zhuixing, who was following behind Demon Lord 3 knights, waved his devil blade and cut through the transparent spider web beside him. He gritted his teeth and said, "Demon Lord. It looks like we've been discovered." Demon Lord 3 knights coldly snorted, passed down the order. "Everyone, advance at full speed. Attack." Eunuch Li immediately gave the order, and the armies that were quietly approaching the base from all directions no longer carefully concealed their tracks. They all whistled as they surrounded the base. Inside the base, Zhang Peng, who was standing in front of the sand table map, received the reports from all over. With just a glance at the sand table, he knew that the base had already been surrounded by a large group of people. He quickly rushed out, crushed his communication jade archive, and ordered the various armies to attack. At the same time, he shouted, "Enemy attack!" Close to 10,000 heroes instantly surged out of the base. They were already fully equipped in extraterrestrial metal armor, as if they were ghosts that had crawled out of the ground. Zhang Peng was also dressed in battle armor. He stood on top of a hill, looked around, and shouted, "Defend the base at all costs." Yes! The 10,000 soldiers shouted, and quickly formed a defensive formation. The 11th Army's million men moved in full force according to their previous training, quickly entering the designated battle location. Before they could even catch their breaths, they were immediately assaulted by a torrential wave of attacks. They were attacked from all directions at the same time, and the battle reached its climax in the blink of an eye. In an instant, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Rumble. The deafening sound shook the heavens and the earth. Almost everyone in the base came out in shock. Even Bai Suzhen and the injured Hong Tailong were no exception. The men and women who had surged out of the base were all asking what was going on. Zhang Peng had no idea what was going on, but he was afraid that something would happen to these people. He quickly shouted at the men and women, "All of you, retreat." However, these arrogant men and women were all rubbing their palms together, thinking that they could be of help. Only Hong Tailong heard the commotion in the distance and knew that something was wrong. His expression changed, and he said, "Not good. There are quite a few experts. Who can contact Yu Qianzhou? Quickly summon him back, we need to retreat." Zhang Peng knew that an expert like him would not speak without thinking, so he quickly took out his small silver ball. Hibiscus also took out her silver ball, and so did 100 Charms Enchantress. The million-strong army from the human world had only been training for less than a year, but they all thought that they were invincible with numbers. They were full of ambition and wanted to show off their skills. Little did they know that if they could really be invincible, Yu Qianzhou would have dragged them out to fight a long time ago. However, there were indeed some benefits to this. The first wave of arrogance was actually resisted by their frenzied attacks. However, when the demonic path experts opened up a path and tore them apart, deafening explosions and miserable screams rang out endlessly. The human army was simply unable to withstand a single blow. In addition, the difference in cultivation was too great, so they were immediately faced with an inhumane massacre. "Just these little bastards want to block my demonic path army." Demon Lord 3 knights looked down from the sky and snorted disdainfully. He sniffed the stench of blood and said coldly, "Have all the armies slowly advance. Surround them from both the sky and the ground. Don't let a single person escape today." With a wave of his cloak, he led Eunuch Li and the others to rapidly advance. In the face of enemies who were superior in both numbers and strength, and in the face of this asymmetrical battle, the morale of the millions of soldiers in the human world was instantly crushed. The survivors turned around and fled, not listening to any military orders or *T orders. Running for their lives was the most important thing. The demonic Path army was not in a hurry to give chase. Instead, they formed a tight encirclement and slowly advanced. Seeing that these people were trying to escape into the underground base, the 3 Knights Demon Lord waved his hand, and the 4 Demon King level experts teleported down. They lined up in a row and blocked the entrance. The expressions of Hong Tai-long and the others changed drastically. Hong Tai-long said coldly, "Hutu, you, Demon King." 3 Knights stared at the earth spirit below. "2, you is you, Tai-long Knight." Demon King Hutu cupped his hands and stomped on the ground. The entrance behind him was instantly blocked by mud. Hong Tai-long suddenly turned around and looked at Demon King Hutu with surprise and joy. He did not expect this person to be in Yu Qianqiu. Just as his gaze turned to Jin Tai, he heard Demon King 3 Knights snort. "Where is Yu Qianqiu?" Hibiscus and the other women's faces were filled with fear. No one below answered. Yan Juexing, who found a chance to vent, immediately shouted, "You dare not answer Demon King's question? You are courting death." The floating demon blade behind him shot down, and a golden chain flew out. Boom! Hong Tai-long's dragon binding rope knocked the demon blade away. "You dare to show off with your puny cultivation?" Hong Tai-long swung the dragon binding rope in his hand and sneered. Yan Juexing made a fool of himself in front of everyone. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he hurriedly recalled the demon blade that was knocked away. "Then let this lord see how high your cultivation is." Demon King 3 Knights waved his hand, and a torrential demon cloud surged out from behind his scarlet cape. A huge demon claw grabbed down from the sky. Hong Tai-long's dragon binding rope quickly lashed out, but it was nimbly caught by the demon claw. With a light shake, the flesh on Hong Tai-long's palm split open, and blood gushed out. He took a few steps back, and blood flowed out of his mouth. The dragon binding rope was instantly snatched away. "Kill!" Zhang Peng suddenly shouted, and close to 10,000 hero soldiers surged out from the valley. A group of warriors wearing heavenly metal armor fearlessly charged at Demon King 3 Knights and the others in the sky. Close to 1,000 people charged at Jin Tai's group of 4. Immediately after, Zhang Peng took the opportunity to slap the ground, and the group of people quickly sank into the ground. They wanted to sacrifice close to 10,000 subordinates to fight for a chance to escape. However, the opponent's cultivation was too high, so high that it was beyond his imagination. A golden cloud rod suddenly appeared in Jin Tai's hand, and it became longer and larger, sweeping in all directions. The close to 1,000 people didn't even have the chance to get close. The other 3 great demon kings were calm and unruffled, as though they couldn't be bothered to make a move. However, seeing that they wanted to escape, Great Demon King Huda coldly snorted, "You dare to show off your earth elemental arts in front of me?" He raised his foot and stomped. Just as everyone sank halfway into the ground rapidly rebounded, and the group of people was pushed back. Zhang Peng's face instantly turned pale, and he thought to himself, "It's over." In the sky, the demon claw's dragon binding rope created a monstrous whip shadow. Clang, clang. The figures that rushed up were all sent flying. The defense of the heavenly metal armor was indeed strong. Even Demon King 3 Knights couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. With his cultivation, he was actually unable to break through the sturdy armor. However, his cultivation was too high. As long as he hit, the heavenly metal armor would immediately crumble, and blood would spurt out from the gaps of the armor. The people inside had no chance of survival. Although the heroic army wasn't afraid of death, this wasn't a battlefield that belonged to their level. The difference was like heaven and earth, and they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu, who was in the underworld, suddenly heard the urgent calls of so many people. He immediately knew that something had happened, but he didn't know what had happened. He hurriedly rushed back to the base, and when he quickly reached the exit of the base, he found that the exit was sealed. Just as he was about to break through the ground, he suddenly heard Yan Juexing's fierce shout coming from outside. Coupled with the sounds of battle that hadn't subsided yet, his expression immediately changed. Without hesitation, he quickly returned to the depths of the base and broke into the secret cave whereby Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia were imprisoned. As soon as he saw him rushing in with a murderous aura, Ferdinand was shocked and blocked the mother and daughter, saying, "You Qianqiu. Everything can be discussed, they didn't do anything wrong to you. Get lost." Yu Qianqiu shouted angrily. With a wave of his hand, he directly sent Ferdinand back to Utopia. The mother and daughter tried to block and protect each other in fear, but Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything and sent 2 balls of Samadhi true fire into the mother and daughter's bodies, knocking them out. Then, he grabbed them and broke through the soil layer above to rush out of the ground. "Stop! All of you, stand down!" Yu Qianqiu's fierce shout came from afar, and everyone looked over. In the blink of an eye, there were only about 1,000 people left in the heroic army. When they saw that it was him who gave the order, they quickly dodged and surrounded Zhang Peng and the others to protect them. Yu Qianqiu carried the mother and daughter and flew over, but he was blocked by the Mara army. Yu Qianqiu lifted the mother and daughter up to show everyone with a gloomy expression. Yan Juexing exclaimed, "Mother, sister." Be it Eunuch Li, Jintai, and the other great demon kings, they all looked at each other. Demon Lord Three Knights retracted the demonic claw that he had condensed and held the dragon-taming rope in his hand. He shouted coldly, "Let him come over." The Mara army quickly opened up a path and quickly intercepted and killed the people who came over. God knew how many people cried out to him for help. Disciplinary envoy, save me, Yu Qianqiu carried the 2 of them and flew to the sky above the base. He looked around, and everywhere he looked, there were corpses strewn all over. Under such a blatant massacre, many people cried out to him for help when they saw him, but he couldn't do anything. This made his heart feel like it was being cut by a knife, but he knew that now wasn't the time to be impulsive. He had to stay calm, or else he might not be able to save anyone. Furthermore, he couldn't bring so many people away at once. Yan Juexing. Your mother and sister are in my hands. Hurry up and tell your subordinates to stop. Yu Qianqiu shouted with a sinister expression. He carried the mother and daughter and slowly landed in front of everyone. 10,000 golden flying swords flew out from his sleeves and danced in the sky, protecting everyone behind him. The Fire Soul mystic weapon condensed by the true Samadhi fire also appeared out of nowhere and protected him. Hong Tailong and the others saw that Yu Qianqiu had actually captured Yan Juexing's mother and sister as hostages, and they all heaved a sigh of relief. Yan Juexing immediately shouted angrily with his eyes wide open, "Yu Qianqiu! You despicable person! Tell your subordinates to stop and let my people come over. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite to your mother and sister." Yu Qianqiu said word by word. Now that things had come to this, he still wanted to save as many people as possible. Who knew that the moment these words came out, Demon King Three Knights was very unhappy. How could he always be threatened by others? The 2 dragon-binding ropes in his hands suddenly shot out and directly stabbed towards the Allure Beauty and Jasper Flower Fairy below. He also wanted to capture the 2 of them to threaten Yu Qianqiu. Otherwise, he would be at a disadvantage even though he had won a great victory. The dragon-binding ropes were as fast as lightning, catching everyone off guard. Fortunately, the Fire Soul mystic weapon suddenly shot out and grabbed onto the 2 dragon-binding ropes. 2 streams of true Samadhi fire quickly burned along the dragon-binding ropes. Demon King Three Knights hurriedly released his grip. His eyes glowed red as demonic aura swirled around his body. He was truly enraged. He pointed down and shouted, "If you dare touch a single strand of hair on the mother and daughter, I guarantee that none of you will live." The white-robed and white-hat Eunuch Li also took a step forward. Yu Qianqiu was alarmed. He knew that he could not hesitate any longer. His divine sense enveloped everyone behind him and they disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Such an inconceivable scene stunned everyone. They could not imagine how these people had suddenly disappeared. Eunuch Li teleported below and slowly walked to investigate the situation. Demon King 3 Knights, who had just boasted, was stunned in the air. He never expected that he would slap himself in the face. Suddenly, his demonic aura surged into the sky. He raised his arms high and roared, "Kill! Kill them all! Leave no one alive!" In an instant, the demonic army began a frenzied massacre. The screams in the surroundings gradually weakened. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu could not care less about exposing the secret of Utopia to too many people. He knew what would happen to the remaining people after he escaped with these people. Once everyone landed in Utopia, Yu Qianqiu quickly scanned the familiar faces. Suddenly, his face turned pale as he exclaimed, "Hong Qi! Gu Qingyun! Zhang Peng, they aren't with you?" You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.